Hi everyone, in this lecture we are going to get these styles done for this section. Let's jump into CSS, but first take a look at what we have here. So we have all these links, everything is in really messed up. So let's just jump into the code. Now where we are in the media query. That's where we left it in our previous lecture. So here is the testimonial section. First, let me get rid of the height. And the color for the testimonial section, it's going to be color tertiary. I'm going to keep it as it is. Let's provide it with a medium padding. So I'm going to say padding, medium, padding, M. So we are going to use the CSS grid technology, with that specific min-max function, which is going to automatically align and basically make responsive the entire section that we have. We're going to use grid for that. So first off, let's initiate the grid context. We're going to say grid template columns. Now in here, we don't know how many columns we want. So we are going to say auto-fit, and we are going to specify the dimensions, and the number of columns is actually going to be specified by the automatic placement algorithm of CSS Grid. It's a fancy name. So I'm going to say 24 rem is the minimum column width, and 1f4 is the maximum. Let's provide it with a gap of 5 rem. Let's save that. Now this is how it is going to look like. It's almost impossible to decode what is happening. So the issue here is actually the images that we have. So we know that all the images, they have a shared class. So I'm just going to grab that. Now the reason that I provided unique classes is because in case you want to style any of them uniquely, any of the testimonials, you can do that. But for me, the styles is going to be the same for all of them. So I'm going to say height is going to be 10 rem, width is going to be 10 rem. Remember when I told you that when you change the height and width of an image, it is going to lose its aspect ratio. What I mean by losing aspect ratio is whether the image is going to look stretched apart, like you're going to pull on two sides of the images and it is going to look stretched, or you're just basically going to shrink it. That's how the images are going to look like. So for these, you're going to see that the images, they're shrunk. It's like you put two hands, one hand on one side of the image and the other hand on the other side, and you keep basically squeezing that image until it is really squished, really squeezed. So this is what happens, because when you say 10 rem height, 10 rem width, it's very rare that you find a square image. Images usually they're a rectangle, either horizontally laid or what we call landscape or portrait. So in both cases they're rectangles, they're not squares. But when you say 10 rem and 10 rem, it means that it is a square. And when you specify an image as a square, it's going to lose its aspect ratio. So the property that is going to handle inline images is the aspect ratio of inline images is going to be object fit. And you're going to set it, this is exactly the same as background size. I think that was background size. So let me take background size. Yeah, it is the same as background size. So let's save that. Now you can see that the images, they have their perfect aspect ratio. Now, what do we want to do here is we want to make the images circular. So if you want to end up with a perfect circle, you need to make sure that the box's height and width, they're equal. In this case, 100 pixels, height 100 pixels, width. And then you're going to say border radius 50%. It is going to give you a perfect circle. This is a perfect circle. And we are not going to do anything else here. I'm just going to grab the testimonials. Let me take a look at, okay, so the shared class is this one. Let me grab that. Okay, where am I? That was testimonial. So in here, I'm going to say display grid. we are going to create a grid. Now, the reason that I'm creating a grid is that you can see these alignment. So the image is on the left, some text is on the top, some text is here, there is this one here, the button is stretched. This is all grid. That's how we have done it. So I could select one card and I could show you the grid for that. So there we go. I'm going to bring this down and I'm going to zoom in so you can really see what is happening here. So there we go. I could select the middle one. So for this one, you can see that we have two columns. The image, it stretches 2 rows, but only one column. The paragraph, it stretches 1 row, but 2 columns, and the button, it stretches 2 columns. So we need to come up with that system. So I'm going to say grid template columns, repeat 2, and the dimensions are going to be 1FR, and grid template rows. Now in this case, I do want to have a specific height for my rows. So the row is going to be min-content. There we go. Because I want to create 4 rows, but I need to provide it with some sort of height. And I'm going to say min-content. Now we want all the items. Let's just save this. Let's take a look at what we've done here. Now what happens here is that if I go ahead and if I select this grid, what happens is that none of these elements, they're centered vertically and horizontally within their grid items. So what I'm going to do, instead of writing align items and justify items, I'm going to say place items, center, because I want it to be centered vertically and horizontally. The gap is going to be 2 rem and 1 rem. There we go. And let's save that. Let's take a look at what we have. So now the image, it is centered vertically and horizontally. All of these are basically centered vertically and horizontally. Okay, so how many rows do we have? We have 4 rows and we have 2 columns. The row gap is 2 rem, the column gap is 1 rem, and I don't want to change that. They are fixed values and I want to keep it as they are. I'm just going to give it a background color, var color tertiary. Okay. So what is the color? It's color tertiary. Do they have a different color? No, I don't really need to give it because the background color is color tertiary for the container. Now let's align these elements. So the image, I want it to be stretched by 2 rows, but only in the first column. This one, I want it to come beneath the name. So let's go ahead and let's align these first. So for that one, I'm going to say grid row. The image is going to start from the first row and is going to go all the way to row number 3. Let's save that. Let's take a look at that. There we go. So it stretches by 2 rows. And now this is automatically beneath the name that we have. So what do I want to do? Now I want this image to be basically to go to the left, to be justified to the start of the grid cell. So I'm going to say justify self, start. Now the image, it is aligned with the text, but I don't want the texts to be aligned there. So we are going to take a look at what we are going to do with these as well. So the images are done. We are going to jump into the names. So for that one, I'm just going to copy. I could just type it. It's going to pop up. So testimonial image is going to be converted to name. First, I'm going to increase the font size to 1.5 rem. Keep in mind that these are fixed values. I don't want to change the font size anymore. The color is going to be var color quaternary. Let's take a look at our changes. Now it looks better. There we go. Now I want this text to basically come down, and I want this text to go up. So this one, I want it to be aligned towards the bottom of the cell, and this one towards the top of the cell. So I'm going to say align self, and let's save that. So because I want these two to get closer to each other a little bit. Next up, we have the profit. This is testimonial underscore profit. And I'm going to say the font size is going to be 1.2 rem. The color is going to be var color quaternary. And the align self is going to be start. Save that. Let's take a look at it. So now you can see that these two are a little bit closer to each other. Yep. So what do we have next? Next up, we are going to take a look at the comment part. So I'm going to say testimonial underscore comment. This is the comment that these people, they have left on this website. So the font size is going to be 1 rem. Color is going to be var color quaternary. Now the grid column, let's take a look at what we want to do with this. Why do I keep clicking on this Figma? So I want it to start, I want it to be within this row, but I want it to span by 2 columns. So if you wanted to span the entire width of the grid container, the shortcut could be just to specify the line, the final line's name, which is -1. So we could just specify that. So I'm going to say grid column. Start from the first column and end at the last column. So we don't have to really count when we're using -1. You don't have to count how many columns there are. And I want it to be grid row. It has to start from the 3rd row, and it is going to start and be right before the 4th one. Okay, testimonial comment. Come on, buddy. Okay, testimonial comment. Okay, oh, this is para, sorry. So this is para, the class name. Why do I keep going there? This is para. I'm not going to change it. You could change it to comment. There we go. And finally, what we have here is this button, this link, which we might want to style differently. So I'm going to say testimonial link. First off, I'm going to increase the font size to 1.2 rem. The padding is going to be 1 rem and 2 rem. The text align is going to be center. The background color is going to be var color secondary. And the grid column, it is going to start from the first column, stretch all the way to end. And this is grid column. Grid row is going to be start from the 4th row and end right before the 5th one. Let's save that. Let's take a look at it. So there we go. Now you can see that this button, because we have set place item center, it is center. So we want to change that behavior from center to stretch. So I'm going to say, because it's horizontal, so I'm going to say justify self. Let's change it to stretch. Save that. There we go. Now these buttons, they stretch across all the column. Now let me just test something out. If I just comment out displace items, is anything going to suffer? No, we really didn't need this one because we placed all of them like manually, so we don't really need that one. So I think with this section comes to an end. So let me go to 100% and let's keep making the window width smaller. They're never going to go beneath 240 pixels. Keep that in mind. So it has to automatically come to the next line. There we go. Now we have we had 3 columns, 2 rows. Now we have 2 columns, 3 rows. And it doesn't matter how small you go. It is always going to be responsive. Like even below 200, it is going to be responsive all the way to 240. So there we go. Now you can see this is the good thing about the auto placement algorithm of CSS Grid. Now, the next section is going to be our footer. I think we are going to use this automatic algorithm for the footer as well. I just want to minimize the number of lines that we use in our media query. When we have these awesome technologies, I mean, why use a lot of lines in media query? So with this, our lecture comes to an end. See you in the next one.